broad daylight, a busy Hollywood street, sirens cutting through the noise, and on a set of public stairs, a familiar face slumped over, completely unresponsive. People started yelling, someone shouted for Narcan, phones came out, cameras started rolling, and within minutes, the name was everywhere again. Andy Dick, a man once known for making people laugh, now at the center of another dark headline, found motionless in public, revived on the spot, refusing to go to the hospital. But this wasn't just another shocking moment caught on camera. For many, it felt like the next chapter in a long, painful collapse that's been unfolding for years. And what really led him to those steps that day is far heavier than most people realize. It all unfolded in the middle of the afternoon in Hollywood. Andy Dick, 59 years old, was spotted slumped on a staircase outside a building. He wasn't moving. His glasses were lying on the ground beside him. At first, people thought he might just be asleep. But then panic set in. Witnesses started calling for help. Someone in the crowd yelled for Narcan, the medication used to reverse an OD. Emergency crews rushed to the scene after receiving reports of an apparent overdose involving a man matching his age and description. According to reports, Narcan was administered right there on the street. Moments later, Andy regained consciousness. And that's when things took an unexpected turn. Despite what had just happened, he reportedly refused to be taken to the hospital. No ambulance ride, no overnight observation. He walked away from the scene. Later, when asked about it, Andy only said that he was alive and felt relieved to be okay. He offered no explanation, no details, no clarification about what caused the emergency. And that silence immediately raised questions. Because this wasn't occurring in isolation, and many people couldn't help but notice how familiar this moment felt. But to understand why this moment hit so hard, you have to look at the battle Andy has been fighting for decades. Andy Dick has never hidden the fact that substances took control of his life. In past interviews, he admitted he had been in rehab more than 20 times. Not once or twice, 20. Each visit was supposed to be a reset, a clean slate, a fresh start. But every time he came back, the cycle quietly restarted. Friends have described years of binge behavior, disappearing for days and resurfacing in worse shape than before. Andy himself once admitted that once he started using again, it was almost impossible for him to stop. One relapse became another, and then another, and the frightening part is how predictable it all became. Every few years, his name would trend again. Not for a movie, not for comedy, but for another breakdown, another arrest, another emergency, another moment where people wondered if this would finally be the one he wouldn't walk away from. And that's why this latest street collapse hit differently. Because it didn't feel sudden. It felt like something that had been quietly building for years. But addiction wasn't the only thing dragging Andy down, because his legal troubles were about to completely change how the world saw him. For a long time, Andy's behavior was labeled as reckless, chaotic, and out of control. But eventually, the headlines stopped sounding wild and started sounding serious. Everything shifted after a rideshare incident that quickly turned into a major legal case. Reports claimed Andy had crossed a line that could no longer be ignored. The situation moved fast, and soon it was no longer just gossip. It was a courtroom battle. In 2022, the outcome became public. Andy was found guilty after facing very serious charges and received jail time. From that moment on, his public image changed completely. What once looked like uncontrollable behavior was now viewed through a much darker lens. But the legal pressure didn't stop there. Just weeks later, he was taken into custody again, this time over issues tied to public intoxication and not following the terms set by the court. Then came another moment that shocked viewers. During a live stream later that same year, Andy was suddenly detained on camera after a new accusation surfaced. Although those later charges were eventually dropped due to a lack of cooperation from the accuser, the damage was already done. By this point, the public narrative had fully shifted. Andy Dick was no longer seen as just a troubled comedian. He had become a permanent fixture in controversy headlines, followed not by fans, but by court dates, mugshots, and unanswered questions. And while all of this was unfolding in public, something else was quietly falling apart behind the scenes: his career. Long before the arrests, the accusations, and the emergency calls, Andy Dick had something most comedians only dream about: real momentum. In the late 90s and early 2000s, his career was everywhere. He became a breakout name on news radio, stealing scenes with his unpredictable humor. Hollywood welcomed him as the chaotic wildcard every cast needed. Movies, sitcoms, talk shows, Andy was suddenly in demand. Then MTV entered the picture. He got his own sketch series. A reality show followed. For a brief moment, it looked like he had crossed into full-blown celebrity status, not just a comedian, but a brand, loud, reckless, and impossible to ignore. But behind the scenes, things weren't holding together. As the years went on, booking agents became hesitant, producers grew cautious, stories about his behavior started spreading quietly through industry circles, missed call times, on-set chaos, complaints no one wanted publicly attached to their projects, and eventually, the offers slowed. After the earlier accusations became public, Andy was reportedly dropped from projects entirely. One film removed him from the cast after claims of inappropriate behavior surfaced. Doors that once opened automatically began shutting without explanation. The shift was sudden and brutal. The same industry that once laughed at his unpredictability now stood at a distance, and when the cameras stopped rolling professionally, the chaos didn't, because as his career faded from the spotlight, his personal spiral became the only thing left in it. By the time Andy's career slowed down, something even darker had already taken its place. His breakdowns became the product. Every stumble, every outburst, every late-night incident turned into viral content. Instead of concern, the internet responded with clips, jokes, reaction videos, and comment wars. The cameras never stopped. They just stopped being professional. And that's when the line completely blurred. Moments that should have triggered real help became entertainment instead. A man clearly spiraling turned into a character people watched out of habit. Hollywood played its role too. As long as Andy was still unpredictable, still shocking, still capable of creating chaos, there was always another reason to put him back on screen. Not because he was well, but because he was unstable enough to be interesting. And the public followed along. Each headline made him feel more like a spectacle than a person. Not someone who needed intervention, but someone whose downfall people waited to see play out. And that's what made the recent street collapse feel so unsettling, because it looked less like an accident, and more like the inevitable result of years of being pushed, used, and consumed by the same machine that once made him famous. And now, after everything he's been through, people are left wondering what condition he's really in today. After the chaos on the sidewalk, the cameras eventually shut off. The crowd disappeared, the sirens faded, and Andy Dick walked away. Later, he briefly spoke to reporters and confirmed he was alive. He said he felt relieved to be okay, and that was it. No explanation of what happened, no confirmation of what caused the collapse, no update about medical treatment, just silence. And that silence has only made the situation feel heavier, because for someone with Andy's history, the addiction, the legal trouble, the repeated emergencies, walking away without answers doesn't bring comfort. It raises concern. It leaves people wondering whether this was a real wake-up call or just another close call that fades into the background. Some fans believe this moment might finally push him towards serious help. Others fear it's just another chapter in a cycle that never truly breaks. Right now, there are no public rehab announcements, no official statements from close friends, no confirmed plans for recovery, only questions. And those questions have opened the door to even more speculation about what's really happening behind the scenes. Since the street collapse, the internet hasn't been quiet for even a second. Rumors started circulating almost immediately. Some online users claim Andy no longer has stable housing. Others suggest he's been drifting between temporary places with no real support system in place. A few even speculate that he's completely cut off from most people who once tried to help him. But here's the truth. None of that has been officially confirmed. There have been no verified statements from his inner circle, no confirmed rehab check-in, no public management update, only fragments, whispers, screenshots, second-hand stories. And that uncertainty is what makes the situation even more unsettling, because when someone with a long history of relapse suddenly disappears from the public eye after a scare like this, it can mean very different things. Some people come back quietly stronger, others simply fade into another unseen struggle. Right now, the line between recovery and relapse is impossible to see, and that leaves everyone asking the same question. Is this the moment everything finally changes for Andy, or is it just another pause before the next emergency? When people see a headline like this, the first reaction is often the same: another celebrity collapse, another shocking clip, another story to scroll past. But this isn't just about Andy Dick, it's about what happens when someone's worst moments become public entertainment, when pain turns into content, when warning signs become punchlines, and when people start confusing chaos with personality. Andy's story isn't just a sequence of bad choices, it's a long trail of missed chances, ignored red flags, and a system that loves the performance but rarely protects the person behind it. And now, after being found unresponsive in the middle of the street, revived and sent on his way with no clear answers, the reality feels impossible to ignore, because eventually the close calls stop being close. So the real question isn't just what happens next for Andy Dick. The real question is, how many times does someone have to collapse before the world stops watching and starts helping? And that's something every viewer has to sit with.